Hello? I believe I'm live right now. And thank you. I see there was a donation there. I feel like it's like it almost went live on its own. So I'm just going to give it a second and make sure people can. Oh, there we are. Hi, Diane. And I really do think, dear Anne made a donation. Hi, Anne. I don't know if it went. Hey, Robert. Robert, my dear friend. I was just talking about you a minute ago. Hi, Melissa. Hey, I'm glad you caught me too. Hi, everyone. Well, I hope hi, Kel. I hope you're happy to be here. I absolutely love being here. Every time since I started doing virtual tours, I've always done one anytime I set foot in this spectacular community. And so I wanted to share that with everyone again. Just to quickly catch you up. So many of you know just last week, not even last week, like earlier this week, I was up in Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories. At one day, they threatened to drop to minus 48, but the coldest we got to was minus 44. But we did see the Northern Lights. I mean, it was just a trip of a lifetime for people. Hopefully, everyone's hearing me just fine too. I got the volume as loud as I can there. But we're there. And then uh, we came out to Banff for several days and had a lot of snow. And most of my group was from the States, but I have okay, but I have two ladies from the UK here. Hey, there's Pam. Hey, Danny. Oh, there's so many people I love here. So two ladies. Pam was just on our trip to the to the Northern Lights and everything. So oh, it was just wonderful and up there. And so because the two ladies came all the way from the UK, so I'll tell you what, I'll take you out to Vancouver. So we went down. We went to Radium Hot Springs and had a soak there. And then yesterday drove up through, and you see a couple of little videos I posted up through Golden and right over the mountains over Rogers Pass, and then we spent the night in Kamloops last night. And now we're down here. It took us about not long, about 2 hours to drive over here over a big snowy pass. And so this is what I want to show everyone. First of all, obviously, there's a lot of reasons we're here, but let me just switch this around. You get a sense of where the snow line is up in the mountains. So it is 6 degrees Celsius. Okay. 6 degrees Celsius down here, but it was 2 this morning, I think, in Kamloops, and then up on the pass was very, very snowy up on the summit. But now I'm virtually at sea level, and I'm down here in this spectacular community that I love coming to. Obviously, it's still winter and the snow melt is not on yet. So there's the mighty Fraser River, which is quite low at the moment. Now it's still a massive, massive river to the mountains in the distance. But it was saying rain today, but it's actually quite a nice day. We see some blue sky up there. Now the Fraser River is the largest river solely in British Columbia. It starts right up near the border by Jasper, and it travels down about 1,400 kilometers, about 900 miles. And this part is where it suddenly comes from going north south. It turns and goes out to the west. And that is the origin of the name Hope. Hope was a Hudson's Bay Company outpost. The border between Canada and the United States, which incidentally is going to remain a border, but that border was established around 1846, and the headquarters of the Hudson's Bay Company, which was in Vancouver, which is now Vancouver, Washington, was moved up to Fort Victoria and inland to Fort Hope. So, what were they hoping for? They were hoping the river was north of the 49th parallel here, and therefore it would be solely in British territory, i.e., Canadian territory. And it was. Now, the river from here, it's about, well, it'll take 2 hours to drive into Vancouver from here, maybe an hour 45 if everything's good. Um, Melissa, thank you very much. So if you're watching along, Melissa's apologizing on behalf of the US. And, you know, I know that a majority of Americans don't support what's going on. But anyone who did vote for Trump and says, "Oh, I didn't vote for this," you know what? You got to go out and protest. And of course, I feel extremely sorry for Panama, extremely sorry for Greenland, extremely sorry for Ukraine. But yes, this country is feeling assaulted. And if you go into one of the BC liquor stores here, there's a big black tarp over all the US imported booze, and it says "Buy Canadian." And so, it is a very important thing. But let's leave that at the moment because I come back to this history here. So Fort Hope was established. And of course, it was fur trade with the indigenous people. And that's because we're in the land of the Stolo, the people of the river. So this Fraser River, it is navigable from the coast. And this river empties out by Vancouver's airport, really, and Delta, Richmond, the island city out there. That's the main delta of this river. And then it comes up, but you could only travel a little further from here, about 20 kilometers further up to Yale. And then the flow of the river was so powerful that you couldn't, hey, it's a YouTube live. Right. And you couldn't go up any further because literally the flow of the river was just too powerful. And so when the gold rush happened in the interior, gold was found around here, 1858, and then 1860 up in Barkerville, way up. And that was the formation of what was the fusion between Vancouver Island and New Caledonia, and that became British Columbia. So here we are, the Stotlo people of the river. And I really love this because I've talked about these lots. These are the pit houses. These are used all through what is now British Columbia. And they would dig them down far enough into the ground. Basically, you're going down the same distance as you would for a basement. And so that's how they get to the permafrost, right? And that's permanent living. And of course, fishing. And when you can live off the salmon, you can live forever. Oh, is Allison here? Hey, Al, nice to see you. And look at the size of those salmon. So this is considered to be the greatest salmon river in the world. By the way, I know people are chatting politics. Say the one other thing, we have a new prime minister in this country. So from a Canadian point of view, anyone who called the former prime minister a dictator, clearly that wasn't the case. So now look at the giant river here. Now we're going to get to the wood carvings because that's really important and that's what has made Hope so famous. But if this looks at all to you like the Mekong, that's because Rambo was filmed here. So that is a big change. The river is beautiful. I mean, Melissa, and I believe you're Métis, aren't you? This river down here is just so powerful and massive. And because it doesn't go through any lakes at all, that's why it's unfiltered. When you see it start, you drive from Jasper into BC, right about Mount Robson, it's lovely and clear, and then it becomes very, very dense. Anishinaabe, that's so fantastic. And by the way, because Robert and Lucy are here, I am coming to Ottawa in May with the same Indigenous kids I went to Winnipeg with 2 years ago, and they're going to perform in Ottawa. So isn't that exciting? So I'm going to book my flight today. Now, we talk about salmon, but look at this. That is a giant sturgeon, ladies and gentlemen. So there's the sturgeon. And there is a salmon up there. The salmon are not running at this time. And you'd know if they're running because you would see blue tarps along the river. And that's where the indigenous people would catch them and then, of course, smoke them. I tried to smoke a salmon once, but I found it really hard to inhale. Right, that was silly. Now, this community has become famous. Now, you know that about 25% of every film considered Hollywood is done here in British Columbia and Greater Vancouver. So often they come up here to film. And so this has become a major, major center of the film industry. So here in 2021, Hope World Class event. Levi Kaya was a Grandmaster chainsaw carver. And we talk about, thank you for laughing. And when we talk about chainsaw carvings, of course, this is not, wood carving is not a new thing because this is the land of totems. And of course, people have lived here on the coast of British Columbia. Quite quantifiably, people may have been living here for 14,000 years. I repeat that, 14,000 years. This is a 2009 carving. And they've always had totems. Totems are not religious. Totems are stories. And there is really beautiful one. It's just a little too far the other way to squeeze into a tour like this. But it is just lovely. Later on today, I will be in smoked fish are hard to inhale. I will be in Stanley Park because I have a car, I think, on the way into town. I'm going to give the ladies a bit of a tour around Vancouver. And then to add to our Indigenous story, we are reserved to go for dinner tonight at Salmon and Bannock. You will see on my To Me Travel Facebook, I often share their post. That's the Indigenous owned restaurant in Vancouver. Now, isn't it tragic there's only one? Because there should be, well, arguably at least 5% of the restaurants. But we will be having either salmon. I'll probably have bison, but I might have salmon tonight. It is yum. And I have eaten there before. And I support them because you should support them, but I really love their food too. So it's just a real highlight. Now, here's the sign for Fort Hope over here. And there it is. When the boundary settlement of 1846 determined that the mouth of the Columbia River would be American territory, the river became impractical. That's why the Fraser became the main center of it. And when you say you love salmon, out here, of course, is the wild Pacific salmon. Now, I love salmon too, but I really, um, I will send pictures of the salmon, absolutely. But yes, so I don't tend to eat the farmed Atlantic salmon. I eat wild Pacific salmon. We're out here, but it is sustainable salmon, of course. If it wasn't, obviously, it wouldn't. Hey, it is just getting clear down the valley. If you see those beautiful peaks, when it is perfect blue sky weather here, when that does happen, this is a really popular place for gliders because it's an upslope of wind. So the wind makes its way up here, and you'll see them going around. Fortunately, the old hotel is closed over on the far side, and it's a shame because Hope is looking really, really good. And when I drive into town, when I came in today, I came in a back route, and it's just so beautiful. You go up the rivers where people are still panning for gold. Of course, the gold rush was so much part of it. I have been panning for gold for over 20 years, and you'll notice I'm still working. That's how little gold I've found. Um, yeah, now everybody wants to make salmon. So when I do have my salmon, by the way, I will get it on a cedar plank, sometimes with a little maple drizzle, but nothing else, right? Salmon, particularly wild Pacific salmon, has so much flavor to it. And we'll be over at Granville Island probably tomorrow, and I will make sure that everybody tries the delicious smoked salmon, which is about as yummy as you can possibly have, and candied salmon as well, which is smoked but also with maple, so it has a bit of a sweet taste to it. So that's really fun. Now, Prospector, I've got to cross the street back and forth. First of all, here's the wings. Isn't that lovely? And these wood carvings. So, yep, there was one wood carver, but again, wood carvings happen. Let me see if I can frame. Nah, it's not really going to work, is it? It's trying to give myself some wings. I'll never be able to have wings anyway. Yes, that's a very good point. That gold prices have gone through the roof at the moment. I keep wanting to short gold, but I have no money to do that with because the stock markets have crashed because of the genius. But yes, and our Canadian dollar is now quite weak at the moment. But hey, it's okay because I'm only going to spend it buying Canadian. So have a look at this. So the old prospector here, I don't know if he's a prospector. Um, this fellow here, but he's holding in his arm, of course, a little Sasquatch. Remember, this is the land of the Sasquatch as well. That's where the story comes from, the Pacific Northwest of the States, and here in these mountains. But there was a statue of Sasquatch here for years, and I don't know where he's gone. By the way, they do every now and then get big snowstorms here. That's why you have this pillar. They get a lot less snow than obviously we do at home. But when it does come down, they've got to get out and plow. Roads are in great condition at the moment. Uh, so isn't that nice? But let's head on a little further. I'll cross back over the street, and we've got the cougars that are up on the next one, which is just such a lovely thing to see. It's such an easy pace. A few years ago, I was here camping, and I was able to do I can do about 3 or 4 distinct tours. Hope it's just big enough. And of course, you go up the Fraser River. There's so much to see up there as well. This outdoor shop, by the way, is interesting. Previously, the one that was here before burnt down, so this has been rebuilt. But they used to have a picture in there of the largest sturgeon ever caught. It was 344 kilos. That's about a 700-pound fish. But if you went into this outdoor shop, you will find prospecting equipment as well for going panning, gold panning. So that is fun. Look at these two. Aren't they gorgeous? No, and of course they're wood, so eventually you get a little worn out, but lovely to see. Um, Pam, I 100% with you. I love Vancouver. I will squeeze in a tour. Actually, I'm going to have to squeeze one in tomorrow because tomorrow's the only day really in Vancouver. So I'll squeeze one in somewhere because then on Tuesday morning, I am getting on the float plane in Vancouver Harbor. No security or anything. I get on the float plane. I fly for 21 minutes over to Nanaimo, and my brother picks me up. I can go spend a night over at my brother's. Look how clear it's becoming already up there. Gorgeous snow over the top. Just beautiful. It's really just beautiful. Oh, and I just wanted to show. So we were just talking about house prices around here too. It's kind of interesting. I don't know what the average house price is. Oh yeah, getting close to $1 million for a house in Hope. But that same house would be 3 million in Vancouver. So, but I certainly do love Vancouver. Here's the sun coming out, so I can take my toque off soon. I actually fortunately forgot my cap at home. But I do want to bring you across here. So they have giant cedar trees, and this is after we were like a half hour before we were here. We were up in snow that would have been waist deep up on Coquihalla Summit. But here is the District of Hope, and this is that sense of that great gold rush. It was all the way up to Barkerville and Fisherville, which very few people know about. But they had thousands of people move in here, of course, during that gold rush, and they built the Caribou Trail, and they had to walk up and over the pass because after you get past Yale, no boat could ever go up the Fraser River. It is beautiful and green, and if you ever want to be hugged by Sasquatch, there you go. Now this is actually Sasquatch bragging about the fish that he almost caught. I like it. Oh, there's so much to show. It is such a neat community. Also want to point out, just while we're here, that on on the strip mall over there's a Canadian flag, and there's also, of course, a Ukrainian flag, which is pretty important. There's a lot of Ukrainian friends feeling quite abandoned at the moment. Now, we've got a lot going on right over here. It's a cool bench, isn't it? Yeah, we got a lot going on right over here now because you've got an eagle with a salmon, and then the bears. Now remember, we don't have any salmon. There's a wolf in there too. Um, we don't have any salmon over on the Alberta side, right? The Continental Divide. But here, of course, when you get in fact, yesterday we drove past a community called Salmon Arm, and the trees around there, I mean, that is still hundreds of kilometers from the coast. And the trees around there, 60% of the proteins in the trees come from salmon. That's how important they are to an ecosystem. Now, for all of you Canadians from anywhere east of here, notice the flowers are coming up. and, and I was in -44 just recently. Um, so the flowers, I'm sure out in Victoria, they're all out. But don't worry, the rest of Canada will get back at the West Coast because they'll have a big earthquake sometime. That's that reason. So the crossroads of history, these same signs, these are actually a little clearer than the other plaques out through here. I just think it's so neat. And when you look at these writings, they get the Stolo languages, these will be glottal stops. They'll be, yeah, tonal language. But there you go. There's the salmon drying racks. And you still see that today when you're here. So it's pretty spectacular. Ah, yeah. And there's Simon Fraser, of course, the Fraser River. He was the first European to travel the river that bears his name, and there's Simon Fraser University. And of course, all the fur trade. And the fur trade, it's important to note that the fur trade was actually fairly positive for Indigenous people in the first 100 years until it became quite depleted. But by the time Fort Hope's been established around the late 1840s, really you're only less than 20 years away from Canadian Confederation, which was designed to bring British Columbia into the country. Um, and and yesterday, you might see I did a little short on YouTube yesterday, and feel free, please, to share it to absolutely everyone you want because I was at Kergalaki, which is where the last spike was driven in on November 7th, 1885, which united Canada. And as you say, it will remain united from coast to coast to coast as a free and independent country forevermore. And we have to acknowledge the things we've gotten wrong and try and build a better society together. But so much of that is tied in to obviously Banff, where I live, the Banff Springs Hotel, to finance the trains. And here, as this was the route from the Pacific. Now, lest we forget, in memory of our war dead, of course, this was a memorial for a long time for the missing children from the residential school system. There is still a memorial down where the totem is, which is important. There was a statue of Rambo here. I don't know where it's gone. They maybe just pulled it down because he's a Trump supporter. I don't know, or maybe it needed some work, but it was quite a new one. But you can look at some of these; they're just so brilliantly done here. I like this. Um, oh, they'd kill. Yeah, absolutely. The children have not been forgotten. I like the lion up there. Yeah, much more of an African scene, really. Not a lot of lions in Canada, but I tell you what, we do have here are bears and these great big grizzlies. And I know this is a grizzly because um, it is great. It's a great name. See, grizzlies have the long claws that are not hooked for climbing, but they do stand up on their hind legs. I love it. And these giant cedar trees around it, they're just beautiful. By the way, as we drove through central BC yesterday around Salmon Arm and Sycamoose, it was very rainy, which is great news because last year there was such a drought that the fruit producing area wasn't producing fruit. So hopefully the rain has been really good news. Now this is a monument to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, which again, to Indigenous people, were seen as a colonizing force, but also generally respected. This carving has been erected in lasting memory of Royal Canadian Mounted Police Service Dog Chip, killed in the line of duty near Hope, British Columbia, September 13th, 1986, while protecting his partner and friend, Constable Doug Lewis. Pretty nice to remember that lovely puppy. And then as you go over here, this one was dragged on for a long. Hey, thank you, Paul. I didn't even notice you here. Thank you very much for your contribution. I promise that will go towards Canadian beer and Canadian salmon tonight. Now, up in the distance, you will see, look, the peaks are becoming clear and they're lovely and snowy up there. A nice snow line. You can literally see where the snow line is. So if I'm walking along at, let's say, 200 meters above sea level, and the snow line is up there at about 500 meters, I guess. And the pass, Coquihalla Summit, is 1,200 meters. And then even higher than that is the Merritt Summit, or Surrey Summit, I guess it's called, on the way between Merritt and Kamloops. I was originally going to come down the Fraser Canyon, the much longer drive today, but the road conditions didn't look great, so I took Coquihalla. Every time I drive across this province, I always want another 2 or 3 days. There's just so much to see and do here. And I say I have two British ladies with me. Many of you know them, and they're just loving every minute of it. And of course, what an adventure for them, going all the way up to Yellowknife in the extreme north and the fabulous blue sky and cold, and then big snow in Banff. And then, of course, coming out here and just seeing the change in topography. It's just so vast. And I mean, I love this whole country, but honestly, between Calgary and Vancouver, you just have some of the best scenery in the whole wide world. Just the vastness of it. And that's always so often the comment. I'm just going to take you across the street because look at this birdie. I don't recognize this one. That's what's so neat is they do change. Look at you, you gorgeous thing. And it is Sunday, isn't it? So happy Sunday, everyone. So we're going to, and I do believe my friend Elizabeth is doing a tour down in Peru right after I'm done. So do feel please welcome to go and see her. It's gorgeous. There's no plaque on it, so unfortunately, I cannot tell you much about it. But it's pretty neat to see. Now, it's as you go through town, you actually find there's carvings all the way back into the hills and everything. There's a mural that's a little tired, but I do want to show it to you. I'm just going to cross the street and you'll get a better sense of it. There's actually lots of murals, of course, throughout this part of the world. But there's the old paddle wheelers. That's how you travel up to here in the old days. And there's the logs being pulled down the streets. Of course, lumber industry, massively important still to British Columbia. Also, there's a huge amount of power, as they say, in this province. There's BC Hydro. And we did actually stop. You might have seen the silly little short I did, but we stopped at the Revelstoke Dam. And that's one of the biggest, one of, if not the biggest dam in the province. There's also the Mica Creek one further up. And here's an older carving here. This is the Workers' Memorial, in memory of those who have lost their lives as a result of workplace accident or occupational disease. Isn't that important? Remember, as we always like to say, the mark of a successful society is one where not every monument is to war. Honor people. And of course, I will take my guests to go see the memorial to Terry Fox in Vancouver. A pretty important person. Interesting. There's a lot of neat Canadiana going around at the moment as the country has its elbows up. So that's good. I don't know if you've ordered your shirts yet, but you'll want to do that. Just a bit of support as long. And again, I'm not buying only Canadian made. I'm any friend, I'm more than happy to trade with. Look at this. Sorry, I think, what is this? There's something. I mean, the work on it is fantastic. There was a writing on it. I can't really make it. Oh, I think it says Ogopogo. Now, oh no, there's a face over here, but if it is, so Ogopogo is a story from Great Big Lake Okanagan. And that's the lake that's in front of Kelowna, it's 130 kilometers long. And the story of Ogopogo, I always thought was kind of a joke, kind of a takeoff on like Loch Ness Monster. But actually, the story of Ogopogo goes right back to pre-colonial times. So in that case, the likelihood of a giant salmon That's a pretty neat thing as well. So that makes some sense. Oh yeah. So this is Hope Memorial Park here. I hope you like it because fairly soon I'll have to leave and drive away, and then I'll be, you know, beyond hope. But carved in celebration of the 2010 Olympic Torch Run, Paralympic 2010 Torch Run, Spirit of BC. And there is a monument to the Olympic torch, and I think I don't know if it's official or not, but they're talking about having Olympics here again, but they're going to be Indigenous run, which is a pretty cool thing. Look at these gorgeous trees. Now, what you can't do through the screen is smell this, but it is just a beautiful smell too. And look at this lush green. Um, yeah, oh, it's neat. So, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to have to love you and leave you because we're going to gather up really soon here and start to head into Vancouver. So, do watch. I just want to see the forecast tomorrow for Vancouver is kind of rainy, but but so I'm going to decide. I've got the car rented. I was going to drop it off to you. But I think I'll keep it. I might even go out to Horseshoe Bay tomorrow, but I just want to see what the weather's like. We are staying, incidentally, and you'll love this. We are staying at the Sylvia Hotel. I have never stayed there. Yes, St. Patrick's Day tomorrow. Well, Jesus, I think we'd have to have maybe a pint or two. Um, but we're staying at the Sylvia Hotel. That's where I used to always give my mum 2 nights there as like Christmas present, that sort of thing. And so I've never actually stayed in it. I've had dinner there, but Vancouver was really quite affordable at the moment. Vancouver in the summer now is so expensive. It's silly. But it's right walkable to the laughing statue. And of course, there's a beach right there. So tomorrow morning, gonna have to go for a swim. Um, Otherwise, I'd drive up to Wreck Beach by the university, but it's right there. So I'm staying in a different place than I normally stay because it was a good deal, and it's just a beautiful part of Vancouver. So, oh, watch, maybe even see in the morning when I get up if it's a good time for a tour. But I am going to get myself a quick little sandwich, and then we're gonna zip down the road and make our way. Yeah, the laughing statue is just oh, it's one of my favorite statues in the whole wide world. So yeah. Oh, Dave, hey pal, there's my buddy. So when I'm in Vancouver, Dave in Seattle is only 3 hours south of me. Problem is you have to go through a border. Hey, I, I, I will enjoy Vancouver a huge amount. All right, ladies and gentlemen, listen, lovely to see you. Peace and love and elbows up. And I was never a patriot, but Canada forever. So has to be done. And I hope you can all see why. All right. Lots of love, everyone. Hey, take care. Bye bye.